Okay. Good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, madam, you are audible.
Yeah.
And you are made as a co-host to share the screen.
Okay.
Once again, welcome you all for this program. And once again, let me introduce you to Dr. Salma Khanam, Professor, Department of Pharmacognosy, Alamin College of Pharmacy, Bangalore. The topic of her presentation is Recent Advances in Quality Consistency, Assessment of Herbal Preparations. I request Professor Dr. K.S. Akki Madam, Department of Pharmacognosy, KLE College of Pharmacy, Hubli, to introduce the speaker of this session.
Good morning, one and all. It gives me an immense pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Salma Khanam. Salma Khanam, Professor, Department of Pharmacognosy, Alamin College of Pharmacy, Bangalore. Dr. Salma Khanam has obtained her B.Pharm degree in 1986 and M.Pharm degree in 1988 from Government College of Pharmacy, affiliated to Bangalore University. She obtained the doctoral degree from Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Science, Bangalore, with the research work entitled Anti-Mutagenic Effect of Ashwagandha Genetic and Non-Genetic Biomarkers Evaluation. She has completed a proficiency course, Introduction to Biology, Biotechnology, and short-term course on Frontiers in Biotechnology from IISc Bangalore. She joined Alamin College of Pharmacy in 1988 and headed the Department of Pharmacognosy for almost 20 years. She is presently working as a professor in Department of Pharmacognosy. She has a total years of teaching and research experience of 33 years. Her research interests include quality control and standardization of herbal drugs, isolation and structure elucidation of phytoconstituents from herbal sources, chromatographic evaluation of herbal drugs, evaluation of herbal drugs for various activities, including anti-mutagenic, anti-diabetic, immunomodulatory, and others, development and evaluation of different herbal and cosmetic formulation. She has also guided more than 50 M.Pharm and 3 PhD candidates. She has co-guided many MD students in Ayurveda and Unani. To her credit, she has published more than 50 articles in various peer-reviewed national and international journals. She has also organized many workshops on herbal drugs research and has actively participated in organizing several conferences. She has also actively participated in framing the syllabus of Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Science, Bangalore. She is also serving as a reviewer for various national and international journals and is also a member of editorial board of various journals. Dr. Salma Khanam has got a research grants from AICT and Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Science, Bangalore. She has completed many industrial institution collaborative projects with Natural Remedies, IHR, FRLHT, and SAMI Chemicals, Bangalore. She has also served as a member of Academic Council of Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Science and MS Ramaya University of Applied Science. She has also been a member of PhD Registration Committee at Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Science, JSS University, and Ennapoya University. She is also a state government nominated member of Karnataka State Pharmacy Council. She is also on the role of various professional organizations as life member and is the examiner for various universities in India. Now I welcome Dr. Salma Khanam, Madam, to share her insights on the topic, recent advances in quality consistency assessment of herbal preparations. I welcome you, Madam.
Thank you, Madam. Good morning, everyone. I'm really very happy to be a part of this FDP. Really an excellent initiative by AICT and of course KLE College of Pharmacy, KLE Group of Institutions. I thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to share my views and experience about pharmacognosy, especially the quality evaluation part. I would like to say, I'm very happy to be among the eminent speakers of this FTB program. Most of them have vast I think, research experience, but I am basically an academician. I have vast teaching experience and a little less of research experience. But I'm always updated with the research that is going on. I may not have had any patents or any other things, but basically I'm a teacher. I like to teach, and I'm very happy to address this faculty of pharmacognosy, because we see that there are so many things that we are not updated with. Of course, the new generation is getting updated, but I always feel that pharmacognosists should be involved more in research, like how I think the discussion was going on. We are witnessing that our curriculum of pharmacognosy is taking a back seat. So it depends on us to do a quality research, and we have to increase our knowledge, be so knowledgeable that we are able to contribute wherever it is possible. So my research experience, I would say, is when I guide MPharm students or PhD students. Unfortunately, we are not having many MPharm and PhD students, but I'm very happy to be giving guidance to the MD Ayurveda and MD Unani students, because I'm available to them. Many of them come. I may not be a guide for them, but they come for guidance, where we try to develop standardization parameters for Ayurveda drugs, Unani drugs, and try to see some of the parameters which will make the drugs more consistent and more acceptable. But the problem is that these students, whoever come to us, are time-bound students who want to finish their work fast. So what happens is they want to do something which is very easily available, and do some TLC, do some chemical analysis, and go. But then when we look at the quality control, or look at what I'm trying to introduce, quality consistency evaluation, or assessment of quality consistency, or assessment of consistency in quality, the various terms, there are so many methods which are available, modern methods which are available. And basically, I want to give you an insight into what are the various these methods which are available. We may not be able to do all of them, but I request everybody to be familiar with all these methods which are available for evaluation, for standardization, for checking the quality, for checking the consistency, and other things. And I really hope that we pharmacognosists, especially in academia, we get an opportunity to collaborate with various research institutes. Yesterday we saw Dr. Ladda talking, Dr. Arun talking, and we've seen what kind of work is going on. So that if we are also able to do something and utilize the modern methods of evaluation, do small work and contribute our part, that would be a real great our experience. So basically, I may be teaching. Since I'm a teacher, I may be teaching, or I may be just giving you a list of various techniques which are available. I hope it will be useful for all of you. So I'll try to share my screen now. Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm happy to talk about this topic, recent advances in quality consistency assessment of herbal preparation. Now, the theme of this FDP is translating pharmacognosy knowledge into healthcare system. Now we've seen, I think yesterday we saw how the phytoconstituents, isolated phytoconstituents are available, and how therapeutic evaluation is done. And also today we saw the safety evaluation of all these. So the pharmacognosy knowledge that we are having has to be translated into the healthcare system. Now, I'm going to concentrate on translating the pharmacognosy knowledge to the clinical pharmacy side, because we see many of the doctors would be coming across people using the herbal medicines, and many clinical studies are going on. But we as pharmacognosys, what can we contribute to the clinical pharmacy? So I would like to, I want all of you to think about contribution of pharmacognosy to the clinical trials of botanicals as well as the dietary supplements. Or we talk about integration of pharmacognosy and clinical pharmacy. So clinical pharmacognosy, I would say, is a new interesting era for pharmacy. Maybe people will not recognize this. I have taken from one of the paper where it was told that what a clinical pharmacognosist can do. Now, when you think of pharmacognosy, what comes to your mind? What comes to PCI or AICT's mind? Pharmacognosy is studying the identity, quality, identity, chemical test, or adulteration and other things. But how can these pharmacognostical studies be contributing to the clinical trials? So clinical pharmacognosy, I would say, would provide detail regarding different aspects of clinical applications of natural products, use rational herbal and traditional medicines and add standard clinical values to them, establish and spread feature of clinical pharmacy to improve health for all. So the pharmacognosist, by their studies and research, can provide full and correct information about all pharmaceuticals and medical aspects of plants, natural health products, dietary supplements, or in total, I'm going to call them herbal preparations. So what does the pharmacognosy help us to do? It will harmonize the quality assessment and it will enable us to get a consistent pharmacological activity and facilitate meaningful comparison and meta-analysis for clinical data. How do we do that? We need to be thorough in quality control, that is identity, purity, and consistency, efficacy, therapeutic indications, clinical studies, pharmacological investigations, documentation, and safety, adverse reactions, drug-drug interactions, contraindications, precautions, and toxicities. So a pharmacognosist's job would be do studies, do research, evaluate all the herbs, and be prepared with these kind of documents. So the demand of pharmacognosy studies is evaluation, quality control, standardization, and quality consistency. Now, this is something which we have been learning from our first B.Pharm. We used to have first B.Pharm pharmacognosy, where the evaluation of herbal preparations we learn by, it says that there are 3 important pharmacopoeia definition for evaluation. What are those? Identity, that is the herb the one that it should be? Purity, are there any contaminants in the herb? Then content or assay, is the content of active constituents within the defined limits? I think we have studied all this. We know how to do all these things. For example, we know identity can be done by authentication methods, microscopy, chemical analysis. Purity can be done by physicochemical and toxicological studies. Content can be done by phytochemical and biological analysis. Now, authentication and identification of the herb is the main thing that we learn, we teach, and we are involved with. So you have various methods of this authentication, which are the age-old methods: taxonomic method, herbal voucher specimen method. But in pharmacopoeia, we see botanical reference sample, which is given. It can be a voucher specimen, it can be a herbarium, it can be any reference sample, microscopy, fluorescence microscopy, physicochemical methods. I'll not go into the details of all this. And now we are seeing that from last 10, 20 years, there are modern methods of authentication, which include chromatographic method, chemical fingerprinting method, chemometric and spectral methods. So I'm going to touch upon all these things. Maybe all of you are aware, but let us revise the things together. Chromatography, you have TLC, HPTLC, HPLC, capillary electrophoresis, GC, marker compound analysis, fingerprinting analysis, and other things. Now, I want to give you an example here of authentication of honey. The classical method of authentication would be physicochemical parameters. For example, the honey can be, I'm not taking any herbal drug, herbal whole drug. Let's take honey. So if you want to evaluate it, you will look at the pH, sugar content, moisture content, ash content, enzyme activity, or you will look at the microscopy of pollen. But if we want to apply modern methods of authentication, maybe we can do, along with the classical methods, chromatographic methods of analysis using HPLC or GC, which will give us the sugar profile, amino acid profile, flavonoid profile, phenolic profile, and maybe we will be either able to identify or we will be able to, classify its quality and other things. Then even mass spectroscopy can be done, where you have LCMS or GCMS, where all these constituents can be, a profile of these constituents can be obtained, including sugar, amino acids, flavonoid, phenol, etc. Then other methods that can be used are infrared spectroscopy, FTIR, near IR, FT Raman spectroscopy, which will give a clear profile about the sugar and amino acids. NMR also will help us to identify the individual compound, and molecular techniques like electrophoresis, SDS page, Western blot, PCR, etc. will give you a protein and DNA analysis. Now, by doing this, we are not only authenticating the honey, we may be also able to define the quality of honey and maybe compare the various types of honey that are available, or maybe maintain the consistency of the honey for selection of the good quality of honey and other things. So the similar things can be applied for all kinds of herbal preparation. Let it be a whole crude drug or a powder drug, an extract or a formulation or in traditional formulation, anything. The modern methods of evaluation, I would say evaluation, which may include quality control, standardization, or consistency control. These methods can be adopted. Then, of course, I was talking about identity. So you have various methods. Purity, you can do physicochemical, pesticide, residue, heavy metal, mycotoxin, toxicity studies. We'll not go into the details of all this because things have been discussed. Then quality control, again, these are also we are very familiar, but if anyone is not familiar, please familiarize yourself. That is marker compound analysis and various spectrophotometric analysis like UV, IR, mass, NMR, and chromatographic methods, which is the best method, I would say, for herbal drugs, because we can separate and analyze, for example, TLC, HPLC, HPTLC, and GC. Again, this also I'll not go into a lot of details. We have evaluation and we have something called standardization. There's a slight difference between evaluation and standardization. Standardization is all the measures taken during manufacturing process and quality control leading to a reproducible quality, which can be compared to a reference. Or we say standardization is a code of conduct to ensure the consistent efficacy that a manufacturer should use to ensure batch-to-batch consistency. And it encompasses the entire field of study from birth of a plant to its clinical application. So you have standardization method for raw material, extract, process, final product, etc. Now, in a herbal preparation, what do you measure to understand its therapeutic quality? Or how can the therapeutic quality of a herb be determined? How do we get consistent and high quality of herbal product? This also, I think all of us are familiar that we need to set minimum levels of marker chemical compounds for a herbal raw material, its extracts and formulations. And we have seen that this concept or this method has been adopted, or it has been advocated by most of the pharmacopoeias, WHO, European Pharmacopoeia, EMA, etc., where in the IP monographs also we have seen the marker compounds are mentioned, and we need to set a level and measure the marker compound. It may be a one marker compound or it may be many marker compounds. But then many a times we are not able to do marker compound analysis. Then you do what is called chromatographic fingerprinting, and that is chromatographic analysis or fingerprint. This also we have seen that WHO as well as many of the pharmacopoeias are suggesting for setting up a minimum standard for the herbs, and also comparing the herbal therapeutic quality. So these are the various, so I have told you the basic evaluation methods which are there. Now, these are some methods. I'm not very sure how many of you are really aware about it. I want to talk or introduce these modern methods of evaluation. Just read through. You have something called microAID. Of course, it hasn't become very popular, but we see trees and events also, it has been mentioned. Computer-aided plant characteristic database for microscopical studies. Then you have something which is very, very important is phytoequivalence and chromatographic fingerprint. chemical fingerprint, which may be a chromatographic fingerprint also. So chemical fingerprint and chromatographic fingerprinting, which can be related to the phytoequivalence. Then various spectroscopical studies like IR, FTIR, NMR, molecular markers. Then these chromatographic studies and spectral studies, since the data is so complicated, we need to have an evaluation method called chemometry or hyphenation, where these chromatography and spectroscopy are hyphenated or combined, and the data is analyzed by certain mathematical models by using computational methods. Then you have one more method which is really interesting, something called MALDI-TOF-MS, that is matrix assisted laser desorption or ionization time of light mass spectrophotometry. This has been used for extracts and other things, but I'm going to just show you something where the analysis can be done in situ, that is on the tissue. You can try and do a mass of constituents to see how the constituents are distributed and how much of the constituent is available. Then you have something called laser microdissection, LMD. Then metabolome technology, I think we are going to have a talk on that metabolome technology, where many analytical techniques for the metabolites are used. And then of course, microscopy, all of us know, but there are these different other microscopies which are being used, like polarizing microscopy, fluorescence microscopy, scanning electron microscopy, etc. So I'll give you a brief introduction about all these methods. So first is what I said, Micro 8. This is a computer program created to prepare database of plant microscopic features. For some time, I was quite interested in this. I wanted to write a grant for, making the microscopical features and making a computer program for it. Maybe some juniors can think about it, that if we can have a computer program where the microscopical features are fed, so that we can use the computer program to see the microscopical features and identify the compound by presence or absence of the character. It is entered and the identity is determined. People have attempted it. Maybe we will get, a time will come when we are able to do this. Of course, there are so many variation and other things, but Micro 8 can be one technique. Different microscopy, I told you already. Polarizing microscopy, which can be used for starch grains, calcium oxalate, crystals, stone cells, vessels, fibers. Fluorescence microscopy for various tissues under illumination, phase contrast microscopy, and SEM. But then ordinary light microscopy is still the most practical method for primary authentication. Then phytochemical methods, again, we are familiar with all this: identification and quantification of secondary metabolites, chemoprofiling, chromatographic fingerprinting, spectroscopy, marker compound analysis, and combination of chemical fingerprint and chemometrics is a powerful tool for quality assessment of the herbal medicines. We are familiar, but I'll still give you some of the examples for this in the later part of the talk. Then these chemical chromatographic fingerprinting can be used for what we call either chemical fingerprinting or phytochemical fingerprinting, where we can say that it is going to help us in getting a unique pattern that indicates the multiple chemical markers within the sample. So you can have a single marker or you can have a multiple marker, and you can make a fingerprint of all the constituents which are there in that. And that can be used for standardization, or you can have a standard pattern to which the samples can be always compared. So quantity also can be determined for these. We have methods where the quantity of each of the chromatographic band can be determined, and it will be an indicator to the quality of the herbal medicine. So these fingerprints can be obtained by various methods, especially HPLC is very useful. HPLC, GC, and normally GC mass. Then these days we are also having HPLC mass, HPLC mass, and so many other hyphenation methods. And these phytochemical fingerprinting, we know, are used to characterize different constituents present in the compounds, used for standardization, used for batch-to-batch consistency, very useful for metabolomic studies also. So in general, one could use chromatographic technique to obtain a relatively complete picture of the herbal, which is commonly called chromatographic fingerprinting. And this can be related to what is called phytoequivalence, where what can be done is the chromatographic fingerprinting or of a therapeutically active drug or a formulation or an extract can be obtained. So we know this pattern has a therapeutic activity. So every time we want to measure the therapeutic activity, we need to get a chromatographic pattern similar to this, and you can call it a phytoequivalence. We need not measure each and every constituent, but we can have a measure of this chromatographic pattern. I hope you're understanding. The pattern would be number of bands that are present at a particular wavelength, the height of the bands, and at a particular wavelength. And this can be kept as a constant for a therapeutically active drug or formulation or anything. And every time we need to measure the quality or measure the consistency, we can look at the chromatographic pattern, and we would know whether it is equivalent or not. So you call it phytoequivalent study. I think I will be talking about this in a later part also. Then we have something called marker compound analysis. Of course, we do marker compound analysis first. If it's not possible, then we go for chromatographic fingerprinting. And there are various kinds of marker compounds which are there. I have just listed out some of the names like active marker, analytical marker, negative marker, therapeutic components, toxic components, bioactive components, main components, synergistic components, characteristic components, correlative components. We can call them quality markers or quality assurance markers. And all these can be measured by using various methods of chromatography as well as spectrophotometry. Here I have tried to give you some examples. Say, for example, if you have an active marker, if active principle as a marker compound, then this can be measured to see whether the drug is having certain therapeutic activity or not. For example, vasicin and Vasaka, curcumin, E and Z gugulsterones in Google, quinine, vithaferin, andrographylide, capsinoids, L-dopa, silymarin, piperin, senosides, etc. If it's a chemical marker, then we do not know whether it is having activity or not, but still it can be measured. So, for example, cucurbitacin, rutin, quercetin, etc. Or sometimes, like how we know all the herbal drugs have certain general compounds which may be having activity, may not be having activity, may be having synergism, may be useful for bioavailability or any other thing. But then we can't say that because of this, the therapeutic activity is there. But then they are very, very important for being in the extract, like how I think Dr. Suresh was talking, that extracts are more useful. So we do not know why the extracts are more useful, probably because of the presence of so many constituents. So we can have certain general markers, which could be a simple carbohydrate or a protein, but then we cannot measure all those things. But these compounds like gallic acid, luteol, stigmasterol, sitosterol, these can be measured. And maybe you can relate the activity to the amount of these gallic acid, these general markers which are present, and have something called phytoequivalence. That is, have a therapeutically active drug or extract, measure these general markers and keep. So you have a quantitative amount of the compound present. And then whenever you want to measure the activity, measure these things, which will be very simple. We know gallic acid, stigmasterol, sitosterol can be easily measured. So those can be done. Whereas the active principles, we know they are very, very costly. All the labs will not be able to get everything. But then gallic acid and stigmasterol probably is very easy to obtain and also do the analysis. And here I'm giving you an example of how the marker compound can be analyzed. I think all of you are familiar. Say, for example, Z-gugulsterone in a Google extract can be done. And one is you do identification by looking at the this peak that is present, or you try to look at the peak height, compare it with the standard, and try and see what is the quantity present, and you can qualify the drug quality of the drug by quantity of this marker compound that is present. Another HPLC method where Centella asiatica, we can look for these 4 marker compounds. I think this is there in Pulak Mukherjee, where you have asiatic acid, medicalcic acid, asiaticoside, medicoside. All these can be analyzed at the same time. One is look at them, see the identity or authentication. Another is find out how much of these compounds are present. Another one is find out how much of these are present in a standard pharmacologically active extract or formulation, and you will have a method of evaluation of the quality, or probably we can use it for quality consistency also. So this is one example. I think I've given you the reference for this, where one of the Ayurvedic formulation, which contains 4 different drugs, has been analyzed. So 4 different markers are used. The one is Google, gallic acid, piperine, ellagic acid. So you have a sample and the standard, and we can try and find out all of them. So whole sample, whole formulation can be analyzed by looking at the 4 different markers. One is presence of the marker and also the quantity of the marker. By you can do the analysis. Peak height can be measured with the concentration. You can find out what is the amount of these constituents present. Only problem is that each one has a different wavelength. Say Google Sterone, you have to do it at 250 nanometer, gallic acid at 278, piperine at 340, and ellagic acid at 278. Then fingerprinting can be done. This is, I think, from CAMAG I have taken, which I keep showing it to my students, where we can do fingerprinting of Andrographis paniculata. You can do fingerprinting to just, even we cannot do marker component analysis, just do a fingerprint. That is, do a chromatography and see what are the various peaks that are present, at what RF values they are present, what is the height at different nanometers, how does the height vary, and does the number of constituent remain same or not. So you can do, we know that HPTLC is a very useful method where wide range to 200 to 800 nanometer, you can, do so many these analysis at a time. Say here we can see you have 10 nanometer interval, 20 nanometer interval, or we can do at a particular selected nanometer where the marker compound can also be analyzed, or all the compounds can be analyzed as to what is the amount, what is the peak area, and try to get a fingerprint. Normally a fingerprint is done by doing that 3 different wavelengths. One is at 254, one is at 366, and another one is at a selected wavelength. This is one example where I was telling you common gallic acid. We know Triphala containing 3 fruits. If you want to standardize that, you can look at the gallic acid amount in that, and we can try and find out what is the standardization parameter. Probably we can standardize it by the amount of gallic acid that is present. This is another example of benzoin. Benzoin, where all the different free acids can be analyzed. If you look carefully, I don't want to go into a lot of details. 1 and 2 is the benzoin. 3 and 4 are a series of free acids which are present: benzoic acid, cinnamic acid, conferryl cinnamate, cinnamomyl cinnamate, etc. Then this, we know this fingerprinting is very, very useful in manufacturing process, where polyherbal formulations can be evaluated for batch to batch consistency. Okay, then we have, so that is about chromatographic studies. Then we have spectral studies, where we have infrared spectroscopy, Raman spectroscopy, NMR, MAS. You also have AAS, where heavy metal analysis can be done. And these days we are seeing inductively coupled plasma atomic emission spectroscopy for heavy metal analysis. And all these spectral data are analyzed with multivariate analysis, that is your chemometry, that is PCA, HCA, PLS, and SIMCA. I think I'll just tell you a little in the slide that what are the various chemometric analysis which are available. So IR, we know, is a very useful quality control method. I think some 20 years back, we were not ready to accept that IR can be used for herbal drugs or for complex substances. But like how we are talking about fingerprint of chromatography, even IR spectroscopy can be used for quality control of herbs. We can do it for identification, or we can check for any adulteration. We can look for geographical origin. So you have 2D IR, you have FTIR, and these days, I think last 10 years, we are listening about near infrared spectroscopy, where near infrared spectroscopy is being used for identification as well as detection of quality. So yeah, this is one. Near infrared spectroscopy is supposed to be an advanced green process analysis technique that relies on computer assistance to achieve rapid analysis and testing. So in comparison with traditional analysis technique, it has many advantages. It is supposed to be highly efficient, rapid, low energy consumption, avoiding sample pre-treatment, pollution, and destruction of the sample. It is seen that even a crude herb can be analyzed by infrared spectroscopy. So I would suggest any of the junior staff to if you have IR spectroscopy, try and see whether you get some data or not. So optical principles of near infrared spectroscopy are mainly transmission spectroscopy and reflection spectroscopy. I'll not go into the principles, instrumentation and all. I want all of you to look into it. Characteristic information on hydrogen containing groups in organic molecules can be obtained by this method. And we know all the herbal drugs contain hydrogen containing groups. So we can do an analysis of all this and then have a mathematical model of sample which will be established using stoichiometry or chemometry, so that a relevant information can be obtained. I'll give you an example here. Again, I've taken it from a research article. So here, if you can see, this is the IR spectroscopy, and you can see the vials containing the crude crude herb. They say that the herb needs to be only washed, dried, and then it can be packed into this, and you can get an IR spectra. Then this IR spectra, by using various kinds of stoichiometry or chemometry, you try and get a prediction for these. This is done for Andrographis paniculata. So you have AP1 and AP3. That is your andrographilide and neoandrographilide, which was done. Then the same thing what they have done is they did an extraction in HPLC, and results of this were obtained. Results of AP1 separately was obtained, and this was related to the NIR spectroscopy. And then they tried to get a prediction of the sample, whether it passes or it fails. So pass or out, it says. I've given the reference of this. Whoever is interested can just go through this article. So here what they did was 120 dried samples were obtained from aerial part, branches and leaves, and branches mixed with leaves of Andrographis paniculata. And near infrared absorption spectroscopy or scan was collected for in the region near means 1000 to 2500 nanometer. And the scan samples were extracted by HPLC, and then PLSDA model, that is chemometry, built by 2D NIR was used by means of this. And you had a class 1 which passes, class 0 which fails, and a discriminate line was 0.5. I'll just show you here. HPLC was this, AP1 and AP3, that is andrographilide and neo I said, dehydroandrographilide. And this was the IR spectra. IR spectra of the, this line shows Andrographis paniculata powder. Standard line shows AP1 and AP3. You can see slight differences which are there. But then the IR spectroscopy was having similar this pattern which can be compared with that. And this was compared, and you had this here. So this data was obtained from that this thing, and then it was predicted, and it was useful in selecting the out of the 120 samples. They could select the samples which passed the test or which failed the test. So very useful technique, I would say. Then of course we have NMR. NMR normally NMR with chemometry is useful for metabolomic studies. Which gives us a metabolite fingerprint, and it can be used for identification, maybe for checking the geographical sample or the supplier. And compared with other methods, despite its relatively low intrinsic sensitivity, NMR has the advantage of having simple sample preparation, robustness, non-selectivity. Thus, it may be helping us to provide global information on a single analysis. So here I'm giving you some examples of FTIR of Arjuna. This is Arjuna, Ashwagandha. This is Ashwagandha, then Embellic, Myrobalan, and Tulsi. So different samples, you can see all of them have certain parameter, some pattern, and maybe this can be used for, of course, we know it is being used for identification. And if we can do a lot of mathematical analysis, probably we will be able to do related to the pharmacological activity or therapeutic activity, we would be able to do what is called quality consistency. NMR, normally this is what is done. You have plant extract or herbal plant. You can do metabolomic, or you can do Dossy NMR, quasi NMR, quantitation, hyphenation with LC, and you may also be able to get the structure. Now coming to another topic, that is, of course, the modern methods of evaluation, where I've been talking about this phytoequivalence and chromatographic fingerprinting of herbal medicine. So I think I have already spoken. Chromatographic fingerprint can be taken and it can be related to the pharmacological activity, and we will get what is called the phytoequivalence. So the concept of phytoequivalence is consistency in efficacy of the herbal product. So phytoequivalence is required because of the following reasons. Each product has a variation, we know that. To meet the same compendia and other standards, we need to have some method. Extracts of similar drugs should demonstrate similar pharmacological activity, but we know it doesn't happen. But still, if you have a drug and you have extract of that drug, it should show a similar pharmacological activity. But then we have seen doctors complaining that the same extract doesn't demonstrate the same pharmacological activity. So in such cases, we can do something called phytoequivalence study and see whether those extracts are similar or not. And we know there are so many variations which are possible in extract preparation, starting with geographical, then method of preparation, time of collection, etc. I think all of us are familiar. So it is necessary to match the product and doses in the clinical trials. And we have been talking that clinical trials for herbal drugs doesn't happen because we don't have consistency. And phytoequivalence probably, the concept was given in Germany a long time back, I think 1990, but still it hasn't become very popular. But I've seen many articles which say that if therapeutically active compounds are subjected to chromatography and the same chromatographic pattern is compared with the other compounds, they may be having the pharmacological activity. So chromatographic technique give a relatively complete picture of herbal chromatographic fingerprint, which represents the phytoequivalence. So the concept of phytoequivalence, I told you, it was developed in Germany to get to ensure consistency of a herbal product. Then, according to this concept, a chemical profile such as chromatographic fingerprint of an herbal product should be constructed and compared with the profile of a clinically proven reference product. So, this is the concept. Chemical profile of a clinically proven reference product needs to be taken, and it should be compared with any sample that needs to be evaluated. So phytoequivalence basically means chemical equivalence in which chemical fingerprint of a efficacy proven herbal product should be constructed, which may serve as reference for the quality control at commercial scale. So I'm showing you one example here, HPLC UV chromatogram of ginkgo biloba in commercial product. So you can also have the compound, this chromatogram of the known compounds like rutin, quercetin, and camphorol and other things, and try and see whether these are present in all the samples, and all the samples, are they having similar compound or not. Say, for example, product product C is having, I think B or C is the pharmacologically proven product. So all the others, when the HPLC chromatogram is taken and it is superimposed, it should be similar. This is another one where 17 extracts of ginkgo biloba meets with the standard measured at 318 nanometer. So these chromatographic for phytoequivalence and for chromatographic studies, we have to do something called hyphenation process or procedures where chromatographic separation system online with a spectroscopic detector is present, so that the combination of chromatography or any type of chromatography with detectors, various kinds of detectors like UV visible, as well as the other detectors can be combined online. So you have diode array detector, capillary electrophoresis DAT detector, GCMS, LCMS, etc. And all these are useful for identification and confirmation of the identity. LCMS also, we are aware, coupling of liquid chromatography and mass spectrophotometry, which has opened a new way to widely and routinely applied analysis of herbal medicine. So if you've gone to any herbal industry, you will see that most of the industries are doing LCMS. Then combined HPLC DAD MS technique has also taken the advantage of chromatography. We know chromatography is useful for herbal analysis because chromatography separates and it identifies and quantifies simultaneously. So with the help of this hyphenation procedure, in most of the cases, one could identify the chromatographic peak directly online by comparing with the literature data or with the standard compounds. Then, of course, you have metabolomics. I think there is a lecture on metabolomics, so I'll not go into the detail, where metabolite profiling is used to elucidate the complex mixtures of the natural products through the development of new approaches and new analytical techniques. So you have chemometric data analysis, which I've been telling you, that use of statistics and mathematics in chemical science to measure and interpret the chemical data, also for biological data. It is also used for biological data. So the chemometric data analysis, you have various methods which are there. Again, we as pharmacists, maybe we will not be able to understand most of this mathematical data, but I have seen many companies, many institutes, like I've seen it is being done at ISC, CFTRI, CSIR, I think many other institutes where the data analysis is done, where you have one of the method of data analysis is PCA, that is principal components analysis, where visualization of natural clustering in data is seen. So many samples are analyzed and clustering of data is seen. And primary evaluation between class similarity, and finally finding the reason behind the observed pattern for making a correlation with the chemical or physicochemical property is done. So that's called PCA. Then you have SIMCA, where construction of separate PCA model is done for each class. Then optimal number of PCs is done by validation, then fitting the unknown samples to each predefined model and deciding whether the sample belongs to the corresponding class or not, and validate the classification. Anyway, let's not go into the details of this because it is a totally computer-based mathematical analysis which is done. Similarly, you have partial least square method called PLS. Basic assumption is that PLS method is that which modifies the relationship between sets of observed variables by small number of latent variables. Then you have multi-way models. These multi-way models are widely applicable for extracting chemical information from the spectra. So the spectra can be a chromatographic spectra, can be your spectral spectra, or any other data that you have. So I've just put this for people who are not familiar with chemometrics. Chemometric is useful in pharmacy as well as medical science. You have quality control lab where it is used, diagnostic lab, identification, drug synthesis, etc. Oh, I'm sorry, I think metabolomics, I'm trying to repeat again. So metabolomic techniques are various. Maybe you are going to have a talk on this. You have IR, NMR, TLC, HPLC, capillary electrophoresis, GCMS, LCMS, and LCMS-MS, then FTMS and LC-NMR-MS, LC-NMR-MS-MS. All these are used to get a profile of various metabolites in the plant. This is another interesting technique called MALDI-TOF mass. That is metabolites. This is during metabolomic studies where the metabolites, including the pharmacologically active components, are distributed in the plant tissues of microscopic characters. They have a specific predictable relationship with the quality. So if you look at the drug, say for example, we know that digitoxin can be identified on the leaf of the digitalis plant. Then similarly, I think rene can be identified on rhubarb. So metabolome, this MALDI technique will help us to quantify those compounds on the tissue. So it is called, microscopically evaluating the compound which are present. So analysis of chemical in the plant tissue, which will assist to evaluate the quality of drug by quantification of the plant tissue which contains the active compound. So the study on analysis of chemicals in plant tissue has been reported. So I'll show you one example here. So the stem is taken, it is coated, it is first frozen, coated, and then a laser is applied to it. And the mass spectrometry of this is taken. So at that particular place, what type of constituents are present can be observed. So you have a mass spectrum of different positions of the plant tissue. Then that can be digitized and you can get a chemical image of the plant tissue to see where those particular constituents are present. This again I have taken from one of the talk that I have seen. Similarly, this was also seen. You have a light. All these, to tell you, all the studies that we are looking at are all done in China, and we know Chinese herbal medicine is so strong. China, Thailand, and other countries where we see these studies are done. So you have under light microscope, the sample looks like this. Under fluorescent microscope, it looks like this. Now this is frozen, coated, laser is applied, and you get a mass spectrum, MALDI of the mass spectrum. So this is the procedure which is done. So cryosectioning of the stem, imprinting, and then coating, and then applying the laser and carrying out the mass spectral analysis. So you have a average mass spectrum, and you may be able to get an image of where, if you apply all the statistical data, you will be able to see where these compounds are present. You have another technique called laser microdissection technique, which can separate the different tissues in transfer sections, and it is proving to be very useful in authentication. For example, you have cryogenic nuclear magnetic resonance and mass spectrometry, which has been analyzed for stone cells in one of the plant called PCA. Then LMD has been also used to separate the secretory cavities from some of the plants. And then cryogenic and HNMR is used, and HPLC analysis is used. This is one of the example of that. Not a very clear picture because I've tried to copy from the paper. I have given the reference here. You can try and look at it. So I think it is Penax ginseng which was there. You had different samples which were subjected to this, and the analysis was done. So yeah, this is what is given. Penax quinifolium. This was analyzed by laser microdissection and UPLC and quadruple time of flight mass spectrometry to elucidate the distribution pattern of ginsenoside in the tissue. So till now, I hope I'm not boring all of you. I have spoken about various modern methods of evaluation. I'm just revising so that you can brush up your knowledge. We spoke about microarray, we spoke about chemical fingerprinting, chromatographic fingerprinting, phytoequivalence and chromatographic fingerprinting, various methods of spectroscopy. Molecular markers I did not talk. I don't think because of the time constraint. Otherwise, you have various kinds of molecular markers which will include our marker compounds plus the DNA markers, biological markers, enzyme markers, etc. Then chemometry and hyphenation. MALDI of MS, laser dissection, metabolome technology, and different types of microscopy. Am I okay, Dr. Hassan? Is it clear?
Yes, madam, it's very clear.
Okay. So let us go to now my topic, what I tried to say, quality, consistency. We have some peculiarities in evaluation and of the efficacy of herbal preparations. I think all of us are aware, we talk, all the lectures we have been talking, that herbal preparations have certain problems or have certain challenges. So for example, we know that all the herbal preparations are complex chemical composition containing several active constituents, and their content in the extract is dependent on many factors, including geographical region, soil, climate, where it is growing, harvesting season, date time, drying, storage condition, processing methods, and all these are causing variation. Then content of active and inactive compound varies from batch to batch. Hence, we know that it must be standardized in the final product to have a reproducible result in the clinical trials. So I am talking about active and inactive, because half the time we do not know which is the active compound, and inactive compounds we know will have some other activities, because each ingredient is responsible for efficacy. All the Ayurveda people say, all the natural herbal preparation users say that even if they are not having efficacy, they may be having an effect on the stability, absorbance, bioavailability, interaction, synergism, antagonism, and other things. So it becomes a problem for us to, maybe we can estimate some of the compound, but we may not be able to always keep the consistency of these herbal preparations. So this quality consistency concept has evolved. That is, what is the reason for this evolution? Quality of natural herbs is fluctuating, And the stable and controllable quality is the basic attribute of the drug, and excessive quality fluctuation makes the efficacy of the medicine difficult to evaluate effectively. So what is quality consistency? One of the basic attribute of the medicine, that is stable, controllable quality. Concept of quality consistency is a guide to guide the development of conformity assessment methods to achieve a chemical homogeneity or bioequivalence of natural herbs within a certain range. See, we talk about phytoequivalence, we also need to talk about chemical equivalence, we need to talk about bioequivalence. So process of deepening the understanding of quality attributes of the natural herbs and scientific understanding of the treatment. Now, herbal preparations have multi-evaluation model and qualitative consistency, which we have seen chemical, biological, and combined methods. So chemical consistency needs to be checked. So when we are talking about consistency, chemical consistency, biological consistency, chemical biological integration. So chemical consistency may be related to the phytoequivalence. Biological consistency also needs to be checked, and that these two, when it is related, you will have what is called chemical biological integration. So chemical consistency, we have learned all these. Today also I have discussed content uniformity, chromatographic evaluation. Various kinds of chromatographic evaluation can be done. What I think I mentioned, you have already you have fingerprint evaluation, maybe single compound evaluation, multiple compound evaluation, chemical fingerprinting. You have something else which I'm not going to go into detail, something called quantitative analysis of multiple components by a single marker. It is something like your phytoequivalence, the hyphenation and chemometry. Now, fingerprint similarity is the relatively complete method. What I said, that phytoequivalence when we are doing, because here we could do single component, multiple component, full fingerprint analysis and this QAMC. But then shortcoming of this is that even though we are doing and we are getting a chromatographic pattern, some of the components which do not have UV absorption, such as polysaccharides and proteins, will not come in the pattern, chemical pattern. So what happens? And the similarity of fingerprint is mainly determined at a high abundance peak. So some weak peaks may not be seen. So in that case, the fingerprint may not be a complete method of getting a phytoequivalence or a bioequivalence or a quality consistency. So the consistency we know can be combined analyzed by PCA, PLC and other things. But then we know that is not enough. So we are talking about spectral evaluation, which already we have discussed. Spectral evaluation, you have either single element content is measured, like in infrared, mostly the hydrogen content is, or multi-element is done, or comprehensive analysis is done. So you have these four methods of analysis. This also I have taken from a paper. That is near infrared spectroscopy, Raman spectroscopy, laser induced breakdown spectroscopy, synchrotron radiation, X-ray computed micro mammography. So near infrared, I have already told you. Yeah, this is one of the example. Sample is collected. You inspect the common methods. Inspect by near infrared spectroscopy. Then get a reference data from HPLC. Then do a pre-treatment. Select a particular wavelength. Then establish a model. And using that model, do certain analysis. Have a data, reference data. Spectra is validated. And you may be able to do some of the analysis. Then you have something called Raman spectroscopy. This is a fast and lossless technique for process analysis. So that is more important for us because we should not be losing the sample. So here it provides the information on frequency and intensity of molecular vibrations and can thus be used to analyze the structures. So it has been used for polymers, pharmaceutical, biological, and biomedical analysis. But then we are seeing that it can also be used for some of the herbal drugs, especially the mineral drugs can be analyzed by Raman spectroscopy. Then you have another technique. I'm not going to go into the detail. Laser-induced breakdown spectroscopy, which is a form of atomic emission spectroscopy that involves generation of plasma using the laser as an excitation source. So it is used for rapid determination of elemental contents and can be used to establish the method for integral characterization of multiple element compounds. So from the analysis of trace elements in natural herbal medicines, combination with chemometry, visual data can be quickly obtained and a consistency can be obtained. Then you have what is called synchrotron radiation X-ray computed microtomography. This is also used for scanning. You can get an image of the plants, insects, animals, etc. So this imaging can also be used for plants. So although chemical consistency-based quality consistency assessment has made great progress, still it cannot answer the biological consistency. So we need to do what is called biological consistency evaluation method. So why? Because chemical similarity does not equal the bioequivalence. There may be poor clinical efficacy, there may be incompleteness of the system for assessment of bioavailability. Therefore, complete system for determination of bioavailability using biological technique is the key factor in assessment of consistency of the quality. So you have to do this assessment, biological assessment, where the efficacy or toxicity can be evaluated. Maybe in experimental animal tissue and organs, in vitro test, effect on microorganisms, etc. Some of the simple experiments can be used. I was really impressed yesterday by Dr. Arun's talk, where so many small assessments were done, and the efficacy of the drug can be assessed. So we can develop many methods where efficacy can be assessed very easily. So methods used for biological assessment are not exactly the pharmacological experiments. So you have to do the assessment in such a way that you get what is called quantitative pharmacological detail. For example, the test design, quantitative indices, interval grouping, reliability test, then linear range, precision, repeatability, etc. So we can do that by something called bioassay. Bioassay is what quantitative pharmacology and pharmacological analysis, which is used to characterize the biological effect of natural plants. So bioassay is relatively simple and convenient method, which is mainly used for in vitro evaluation. Easily it can be done. Consistency of sample can be obtained. Then we can do what is called under bioassay, biopotency, biological toxicity potency, and bioactivity limits. So for example, biopotency, you can do the biological effect in certain biological system. Biological toxicity also needs to be done always. And the bioactivity limit test can be done by using certain small specific biological effect. For example, it could be a LD50, or it could be agglutination or convulsions or other things which may be a semi-quantitative or semi-qualitative method. Then you have what is called bio-response profile, which refers to group of characteristic biological data or map that represent the effect of sample on the biological system. So you have a time, effect of dose, and effect dependence. And biological response profiles can be measured, and you can get a dynamic method, a biological profile. Then we can also do what is called biological gene expression profile. This is a narrow expression of transcriptomics, which is a discipline that studies the gene transcription in the cell at an overall level. But of course, here we should know where the this thing is acting. So in this technology, we try and find out which mRNA is possible, and that is characterized and evaluated for getting the consistency of the biological activity. Then, so you have chemical data, you have biological data. Now these two needs to be integrated. Chemical biological integration evaluation method can be done by, when you integrate it, you might be able to get something called a detection index. And you may be able to do pharmacodynamics and a mechanism of active ingredients. You will get a single component theory. Little complicated, but these are studies which are being done. I haven't seen many Indian papers for all this. Many of the papers are Chinese herbal research. So it is difficult to determine the consistency of quality of natural herbal medicines and their preparations if the assessment of quality is carried out using multiple indices alone, without considering the different influences of different components on the overall efficacy. So modern methods for determining the consistency of quality of drugs are more closely associated with the clinical mechanism and have the advantage of rapidity, comprehensiveness, and non-destructiveness and efficiency. This is a little more detail about how this can be related to the mechanism of action. And the mechanism of action of drugs have been shown to be strongly correlated to their clinical efficacy. So what we need to do is not only see the towering trees, but also see the outline of the forest. So everything needs to be done. Now here I'll give you the gist of what we have learned. There is a typical chemical assessment for quality consistency flow chart. So you have a sample, process it, prepare it. So where your sample is collected, authenticated, extracted, or it is analyzed as such. Do the various kinds of chemical evaluation, maybe phytochemical, HPLC, HPLC, GC. Do a chromatographic evaluation, do a fingerprint, multivalent fingerprint, and quality consistency can be seen by these chemometric analysis, right? So you will get what is called chemical assessment for quality consistency. Similarly, we can do assessment of spectral assessment of quality consistency, where the samples can be taken, do a spectral evaluation, do the analysis by using a NIR, that is near infrared, Raman, LIBS, and again do chemometry. You will get a quality consistency with respect to the spectral data. After that, do your biological consistency. So here I've taken the same thing what is there in the paper. Sample is processed, biological evaluation is done. So biological evaluation can be done by various techniques. You can have some in vitro techniques like antibacterial, inhibition of enzyme activity, gene expression, etc., and do a quality consistency. Now evaluate all these. So you have the sample, you have a chemical characteristic fingerprint with the chromatography and spectral, biological effect profile, and then you will have a quality consistency evaluation, maybe a consistent chemical composition and consistent biological activity. And only then we will know that the herbal preparation is having consistent quality consistency. Of course, it is a tedious method, but then many groups have to involve and try to see whether this quality consistency can be arrived at, so that the sample is available for clinical trials and people have, people accept the herbal drugs more easily. So this can be evaluated by, I have introduced so many terms, like pharmaceutical equivalence, effective equivalence, biopharmaceutical equivalence, bioequivalence, and all these are related to the clinical study. Now, I think I have this may be the last slide, where overview of assessment methods for quality consistency. How do you do quality consistency? You do chemical evaluation, chromatography, spectroscopy. Various kinds of chromatography, single component, multiple component, fingerprinting, and quantitative analysis of multiple component by a single marker. Then you have various spectroscopical details, biological evaluation where bioassay is done, bioresponse profile is done, biological gene profile is done, and then the integration of chemical and biological evaluation, chemical fingerprint, biological effect profile, effective equivalence method, and of course the metabolomic studies. So clinical application of natural herbs has gradually deepened. Consistency of chemical composition is not enough. Combination of chemical composition of biological activity of evaluation will be the future development trend. So we need to explore the scientific evaluation methods of quality consistency and lay a foundation for industrialization and clinical application of natural herbal medicine. I hope this talk has, at least kindled some kind of interest, so that we can look at the various scientific evaluation methods which are available, so that we can talk about quality consistency and we can do the clinical application and industrialization, and finally the modernization and globalization of the natural herbal medicines, which is the need of the day. And of course, we can translate our pharmacognosy knowledge into the healthcare system, so that most of us have the faith in the system. Of course, many of us have the faith, but then the problem is they say it is not consistent, it is not safe, and other things. All these problems could be solved by applying all these scientific evaluation methods. And so we need modernization, globalization for a better healthcare. These are some of the references that are there. I think if anybody is interested, I can give you all these references. Thank you. Any questions? I'll be very happy to answer.
Yeah. Thank you, madam. The session is open for discussion. Delegates can unmute their mics and you can ask question one by one. Yeah, there's a question by one of the eminent speaker, Dr. Bannappa Unger. His question is quality consistency. It's not a question. I think he has given his opinion and his view he has presented. Yeah. Question by Vaibhavi. Can we evaluate crude drug powder via sample FTI, a simple FTIR probe?
I've heard that it can be done. IR can be near infrared is being done. FTIR, I think a little controversy is there. FTIR may not give all the details, but of course the extract can be done. But many people, I've seen many Ayurvedic people doing an FTIR's this thing. Many of these papers also mention that the crude sample can be tested. Of course, the data will be very, very, very complex. Because we know that all kinds of peaks will come there. So we need to have a proper data analysis that is done. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am. Another question by Lokesh Gupta. Which type of crude drug samples? Yeah. Can be analyzed by MALDI-TOF? That I think that is his question.
Yeah, I told you, no, MALDI-TOF. The examples that I have given is the fresh and the whole drug, a leaf sample and a stem sample. But MALDI can also be done for extracts. So you have, I have not given the example, but there are some extracts which is done. But see, what I was trying to show was that MALDI can be used to see the variation in the sample or to see where the phytoconstituent is actually, concentrated. So get a profile of the picture to see. Say, for example, I was trying to tell you digitalis, we know we want to see where digitoxin is present. We know it is present in leaf. So at what particular areas it is concentrated. So maybe it is more useful for identification, but we can also quantify the amount of compound that is present. Am I clear?
Yes. If there are no questions, I think we'll wrap up this session. Thank you, madam. Thanks a lot for this insight, in-depth information about analysis of phytoconstituents through various conventional as well as the modern techniques of analysis. I request Shaki madam to sum up this session.
I thank you, madam, for in spite of your busy schedule, for accepting this invitation and giving vast knowledge to all our delegates regarding the assessment methods of quality consistency. I think you have gone into the detail regarding chemical assessment, spectral assessment, and biological assessment for quality consistency. It was a very nice detailed knowledge which our delegates gained. Thank you, madam. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Not audible.
Yeah, we have a question by Bhavik Chauhan. I think,
Yes, sir.
yes.
Can I?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Madam, I want to know that in particularly herbal formulation, how we can decide the dose of the formulation. If we prepare any, particularly in case of the polyherbal formulations, how we decide the dose of the drug?
The dose has to be it has to be, I think the physician has to decide that. Once the dose is decided, we can do the consistency of the constituent. Now we cannot be decide. I mean, I don't know whether I am right. The dose of the therapeutically active compound we will not know, isn't it? Or we should know what type of constituents are present. Try to do our normal pharmacological studies. We'll do an LD50, try to calculate a human dose, or look at the literature. Most of the herbal drugs, Ayurveda has mentioned the doses which are there. And that dose can be used for, if we are using for ourselves, or we are trying to, try to do an animal study. Say, for example, I'll tell you one example that one of the Unani Unani MD student had come. So he was telling the dose of our Unani preparation is around 10 grams as a powder. And he said, I want to reduce the dose to a lesser amount. So what we tried to do was try and find out what constituents are present. And then we tried to extract that. And then in the extract, we tried to see whether the same constituents are present or not. And he was able to, the 10 gram of the powder, he was able to make a small capsule and a tablet. Both the formulation was done. So as a pharmacognosist, we can do that. But deciding the dose, I don't know who will be able to help me out. Deciding the dose, I'm not very sure that we can do it. We have to look at the literature. We have to talk to the physician and only then decide. What do you say, Dr. Hassan?
Yes, madam. I think deciding the dose, I think we'll leave it to the pharmacologist. Because
not even pharmacologist, it has to be the herbal drug user, the physicians. But for our animal studies, when we are doing, of course, we have formula to calculate. We want to reduce the dose, we can do, and we can look at the consistency in the quality of reducing the dose. Or see, now many people are doing making a modern formulation. So you have a powder and an extract, they are making a tablet. So you try to see a consistency that the Ayurvedic formulation is having a certain amount of dose, the same certain amount of chemical constituent, the same constituent should be present even in the modern formulation that we have made. We are seeing many herbal formulations made in form of nanoparticles. So one of my students also tried to do that. Nanoparticle you do, or a capsule you do, or you're making herbal patches you're doing. So there, what we can do is try and find out the actual formulation, what is the chemical constituent that is present. Try and evaluate that. Do a quantitative analysis, and then this formulation, try to see the same consistency is maintained. I hope that is clear, Dr. Bhavik.
Okay, madam. Satisfied.
Or anything else you want to add?
No, madam. Thank you.
Ganappa sir, would you like to add on this for dose calculation?
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, as madam said, actually the clinical dose actually very difficult to say at this point of time, because it depends on that the active constituent, and it's a complex system. In fact, you understand that as it is said, no, if we have a characterized extract and its dose efficacy studies done, probably we will be able to predict the certain dose, but it is not a straightforward answer, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, madam. Thanks a lot for accepting our invitation and giving us such a wonderful
pleasure.
talk. Wonderful.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes,
I would like to thank madam because she has given a wonderful talk on this quality consistency, which is one of the important topic which everyone has to learn now in this juncture, where these herbal drugs are gaining importance, and an aptly chosen theme of this program, translating this traditional knowledge or pharmacognosy knowledge into the healthcare systems. We have reached that stage now, and COVID has given the opportunity that which can be integrated into this modern system of medicine. Of course, we have a long way to go, and we have a lot of challenges. And in that, madam has given light into these various methods which are going to be useful for that disposal of our scientists. Thank you, madam. Thank you very much for that.
I hope it was useful for everyone. So I want to give one suggestion to all the young pharmacognosists. Look at all the methods. One is be well versed with all the methods, and you should teach to your students also, because it is very important that most of the times what we do is we have the knowledge, but then we stick to the syllabus. Syllabus does not ask us to teach all these things, but we should teach. I remember, tell you one incident. I think it was some 15 years back. I used to talk about marker compound analysis, even though it was not there in the syllabus. And this one of my B Pharm student, he went for some interview and he was asked about herbal drugs. How will you analyze? So he said marker compound analysis. And that interviewer was very surprised, and he said, "Who's your teacher? Who's your pharmacognosy teacher?" So I feel I want all the faculty who are here to be well versed with all these. Keep looking at the methods, even if it is not there in the syllabus. We need to learn first and also teach the students. The students have to learn the newer techniques. So I think that message I want to convey, and hope my talk has inspired people, and you will learn the methods. And of course, I want somebody to, we are not having all the facilities. We are already, I will agree that we are not doing a lot of work, but the youngsters, I want you to apply for grants. Say, for example, I'll give you one example. IR, near infrared spectroscopy, looks like a simple technique. So apply for a grant or write a project where it is very easy to do. Take some samples and do NIR spectroscopy, or do a simple TLC. I'll give you another example that our 8th semester, we have the project, no? So there, some of the students who came under me, they were very interested. They said, we want to isolate starch from banana. And I said, okay, you isolate starch from banana and then you make formulations using this starch. So they have done a senoside formulation with using different starch, banana starch and this starch. And then they tried to see, we tried to do the consistency to see the starch has, maintained the consistency or not. Of course, we did not do NIR, NMR and all that, but the regular TLC and other methods were done. So such kind of small projects can be taken. And now we have an opportunity that B Pharm, because I see B Pharm students are more enthusiastic than M Pharm students. So we can give them some of the simple projects and, continue to gain knowledge and be prepared. Whenever anybody talks about herbal preparations, we should be ready with answers if they have any problems. I hope that is
Correct, madam. Rightly mentioned. I think even the PCI and AICT, they have come up with a syllabus where they have included project practice school and project work, where we need to inculcate the research attire in them. So I think this is the right time where subject oriented topics can be given to them of their interest, where they can develop more interest in going into specialization.
Pasha sir, may I add in addition to
Yes,
the
sir.
madam?
Please. Yes.
As madam emphasized about this, I was listening to her. She was inspiring these young teachers to apply for the grant. So I just got a message here that ICMR has opened this extramural research grant application. So it is an opportunity for all of us. So we can, if anybody is interested, the collaborative project can also be taken, because our institute mandate is on traditional medicine, and it is directly relevant to this your subject, where these pharmacognosist can help us in this. So I'll be more than happy to support if anybody is interested. And thanks, madam, for that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Banappa sir, for sharing the information about the grant opening. I think many of us will be interested in collaborating and writing a proposal for that. So I'll be sharing the information once I get it from Banappa sir in the forum, in the WhatsApp group. So those who are interested, maybe they can apply to that. Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. Thank you once again. We shall join for the next session at 3 p.m. The speaker for that afternoon session is Dr. Ravi Shankar, Senior Medical Advisor, Nutrinorm Wellness Private Limited, Bangalore. His topic of presentation is Clinical Studies in Herbal Drug Industry. So we'll be joining this session at 2:45. So with this, we come to this morning session. Thank you, madam. Thank you, all the
Thank you.
delegates. Thank you.
Thank you.